Pornography addiction. Dirty secrets the porn industry and the devil are keeping from you. Introduction. For the sake of humanity, I warn you against a sneaky, corrupted evil that is among us. It can be stronger than alcohol and more addictive than cigarettes. It destroys relationships, self-esteem, and families. It lurks beneath the shadows, and few of us realize how insidious the snake is that is about to bite us in the heel. Those who do realize it exists are often too afraid to talk about it, or it upsets them so much that they would rather change the topic. But our attention to it does not alter its reality. Whether we like it or not, it is out there, and it can be as close as the click of a button. I am talking about the evil of pornography. There are many victims, and the devil is laughing. Porn is one of his highly effective ways to make people miserable. He attacks us where we're most vulnerable, and he knows that human sexuality is as fragile as the porcelain doll, as fleeting and swift as the wind, and as controversial as life itself. And he uses it and persuades us to abuse it. We have to fight this. We are the last chance in these, the fastest changing times in the history of humanity. With all the technology and opportunities, the travel, the modern day inventions, and the ever-changing dynamics of economics and global tensions, we have the chance to use what we receive for good or for evil. The choice is ours. In this book, I will make brief attempts to open your eyes, to show you what's really going on, and to shed light on what remains in the dark. I will also tell you the things the devil doesn't want me to tell you, and neither does the porn industry. They work together. He uses their greed to destroy our happiness with the erroneous use and expressions of sexual urges. And the porn industry uses those things, in turn, to feed their bank accounts. Basically, there are two changing undercurrents here: supply and demand. Or in other words, sexual services and money from customers, whether that's online or live. Not only will I make an attempt to further open your eyes to the truth, but I will also provide solutions those delinquents don't want you to know. After a while, you may be convinced, anyway, that watching porn is wrong. Perhaps you already realized it when you first did it or heard of it. But knowing that it is wrong doesn't always help enough to stop the addiction. And no matter how much I will condemn it in this book, I will also try to make you feel my sympathy, or empathy if you will, if you are struggling to break the pattern. Know that there is hope, and that you should never give up, nor beat yourself up, despite of some excuses you may have made up in the past. No human being is 100% weak, and neither are you or your family members. You need to realize that I married someone who had a father who, after 15 years of addiction, gave up pornography completely, and that I have met numerous other people who miraculously changed their ways. Secret 1. The sad stats. There are still people who think that pornography is okay. How naive. I remember reading the policies for a nudist camp. They boasted of their connection with nature, their uncaring attitude of what should be regarded as normal, walking around without clothes on. After all, we know what it looks like, don't we? It's okay to stare. The human body is beautiful, not to be seen as something we should hide. Do you realize that statements like this are so deceptive because they are only halfway true? The devil always disguises lies with a sprinkle of truth. And no, I'm not calling these people the devil, but I am just saying their logic is just so off. Did these nudists forget that the fact that humans have instincts just like animals? And that the safest way to control those instincts is to not go near temptation, to make it harder on yourself? One wouldn't go on a diet and then sit at the table and stare at a delicious cake for hours, right? Then how is this any different? But do you want to hear the most ridiculous part about their blog, or whatever it was? It went on to say that single men are not welcome at certain camps, and that if only certain muscles between a man's legs would move, it would be better for them to leave the crowd and go somewhere on their own until it would go away. How sexist! So they're not supposed to show that they feel anything? Are they not supposed to have sexual feelings? I didn't understand their logic anymore. The one thing I did understand, however, is, so men do have sexual urges. So it is hard to control. So there have been incidents which force you to exclude them like that. Interesting. Do you see the problem here? These nudists wanted to believe that everyone could just consider a naked body as normal, but at the same time, they knew very well that this would never happen. Needless to say, this only affirmed that it was all nonsense, and they needed to get real. Let me tell you the truth, not the half-truth. Humans have sexual feelings, and that's perfectly okay. It should not be condemned, scolded, or judged. It should be encouraged. But, and that's a big one, it should at all times be controlled. No, you didn't hear me say, put away, neglected, forgotten, denied. No, I said controlled. There is a time and a place for everything. And human sexuality is such a sensitive topic that it should be treated as such. Intimacy is supposed to be intimate, not exposed. It's supposed to be kept private and given to those who love us intimately and are committed to us. I am talking about our marriage partners. It's not easy. I know because I am religious and I have had the struggle of controlling my sexual urges as well, as I couldn't until I was married at age 31. I know how it is to have a feeling so strong that it causes major frustration and impatience. But I am just telling you this now. If I can do it, you can do it. Many of us do not realize the magnitude of the problem of pornography. Here are some crazy stats. A. Pornography, infidelity, and risky behaviors are among the most frequently treated internet-related problems by health professionals, as indicated by national research. B. More than 50% of all the purchases on the internet is assessed to be related to sex. C. Porn profits in the United States have been estimated to exceed the combined profits of companies like ABC, CBS, and NBC. D. In the year 2000, a study showed that nearly $2 billion cable TV industries consisted of 2% sports, 4% computer games, and 69% pornography. E. It was just in 1998 that about $1 billion was spent by users viewing pornographic websites, and that's when the internet was barely on the rise. That number has hit the roof ever since. F. In 2014, the porn industry in the United States alone made $13 million in revenue. G. Despite the high margins, many porn movies are created with a low budget, small crews, and cheap producers, unlike the millions of dollars that get spent on Hollywood quality productions. H. 88% of porn movies contain aggression and violence. This goes to show you that it is not about the nudity or the beauty of the human body, but it can quickly go towards control and forceful intentions. I. More than 90% of all porn stars hate or dislike what they do. J. The initial popularity of the VCR in the late 1970s was fueled by pornography, and in turn helped spread porn into the home. Consumers of porn were willing to pay high prices for a VCR, which drove down the cost and helped the rapid expansion. By 1983, there were already 13,000 pornography videos on the market. Because Sony refused to license its Betamax technology to pornographers, the VHS flourished. K. In 2002, Comcast pulled in $50 million from pornography alone. Some more shocking facts will come to light in Chapter 4, where I will explain how the women involved in this industry often become victims of real crimes committed behind the scenes in the dark corners of society. Just to make you face reality, if you still aren't convinced, look at these tables with the most searched topics on the internet and see how many of them are in the adult content category related to sex or pornography. So you can see that 22 out of all the categories and keywords on the internet are related to sexual content, even beating, many times, the most famous actresses, the lottery results, famous kid shows, business content, the news, games, TV, sports, and handy tools like translating and looking up a location on a map. And here are the top searched categories. See that? 547,920,000 searches for adult content. More than 547 million. Listen to me, this problem is huge, and perhaps you could even say it's the #1 problem our society has nowadays. I don't know about that, but it certainly could be. Secret 2. How pornography damages you. The porn industry and the devil have teamed up to tell you the following lie. Pornography is not bad for you. It's a healthy expression of our sexual urges. Nothing could be further from the truth. One person said, pornographic or erotic stories and pictures are worse than filthy or polluted food. The body has defenses to rid itself of unwholesome food. With a few fatal exceptions, bad food will only make you sick, but do no permanent harm. In contrast, a person who feasts upon filthy stories or pornographic or erotic pictures and literature records them in this marvelous retrieval system we call a brain. The brain won't vomit back filth. Once recorded, it will always remain subject to recall, flashing its perverted images across your mind and drawing you away from the wholesome things in life. Pornography impairs people's ability to enjoy a normal, emotional, romantic, and spiritual relationship with a person of the opposite sex. It erodes the moral barriers that stand against inappropriate, abnormal, or illegal behavior. As conscience is desensitized, consumers of porn are more inclined to act out what they have seen, no matter what the effects on their life and the lives of others are. Pornography is very addictive. It harms decision-making capacities, and it hooks its users, drawing them back obsessively for more and more. A man who had been addicted to pornography and to hard drugs wrote me this comparison. In my eyes, cocaine doesn't hold a candle to this. I have done both. Quitting even the hardest drugs has nothing compared to trying to quit pornography. Some seek to justify their indulgence by arguing that they are only viewing soft, not hard porn. This is self-deception. Because pornography is a real addiction, many experience the same symptoms as other addicts: irritability, loss of concentration, a quick temper, lack of social engagement, craving more, a need for a stronger fix. If you're trying to break free from a porn addiction, these symptoms will increase at first and diminish afterwards, like any addict recovering from drug abuse. Moreover, many individuals who became porn addicts claimed they experienced a deficiency in their sex drive. Their libido wasn't as effortlessly stimulated anymore. It was so clear. One might be turned on by what is called soft sex, only to get bored and crave rougher and more explicit material, gradually becoming a consumer of hardcore porn, with foul or patronizing scenarios to get the same kick out of their pornographic fantasy. In this way, it doesn't improve your sexual satisfaction at all, but has the opposite effect indeed. It's like drinking salt water. It just doesn't quench one's thirst. One of the things that I think is most damaging to oneself is the inability to make the same reasonable decisions. Studies have shown that when people become highly addicted, and the same counts for pornography addictions, the frontal cortex in the brain literally shrinks. This part of the brain enhances the capacity to make smart, thought-through decisions on a daily basis. When that part of the brain becomes less functional and even smaller, an individual could be doomed to make more unwise decisions about what to focus on, how to stay focused, control emotions, or make decisions based on multiple variables that are related to it. One person I talked to, who had given up his addiction, told me, "In that time period, when I was addicted, I felt like I was in a dark space." So what makes a naked picture, for example, wrong? Why do people call pornography filth, destructive, or evil? I mean, there is nothing wrong about the human body, and it's not like a picture like that isn't beautiful. The human body can be attractive, and that's okay. What is not okay, and that is the main point here, is that the person has no relationship with you whatsoever. You are, as Jesus said, lusting after another woman. If you view pornography, and please make the distinction between actively looking for it and staring at it, and accidentally having seen it, the later is not sinful, and this is wrong. Some Christian preachers go as far as to say that if you view too much pornography, your sexual life will be messed up, and perhaps there is some truth to that. In one of the later chapters, I will go over some things related to that, things that are related to the release of dopamine, attachment, and oxytocin. I have talked to guys who didn't care about their addiction. What does it matter if I am addicted if I enjoy it? But why would you ever want to be addicted to anything? Addiction is not freedom. And not having the freedom to make choices always leads to misery. Secret 3. How pornography damages your loved ones. Those who are consumers of pornography don't always realize how this can damage their relationships with their wives. Now look, I know there are female porn addicts too, so don't feel like I'm being sexist here. Besides, women have different challenges in life than men. In a way, it's not really fair. Biology itself determines that men are more visually stimulated than women, and there are good reasons for that, but it is also a challenge. It makes it so that most pornography is aimed at men, and that men are more vulnerable to it. And for those who try to stay away from it or quit watching it, I commend you for your determination and your faith in yourself and perhaps in God. Women want to be loved and cherished by their partners. Women are not turned on by the knowledge that their husbands are thinking of pictures from the internet when they want to make love to them. They often feel inadequate, ignored, not valued, and unloved. Here is a letter from a grieving wife who wrote to a certain religious leader. My husband died recently. He came to me on that same evening to tell me he had been addicted to pornography. He needed me to forgive him before he died. He further said that he had grown tired of living a double life. I was stunned, hurt, felt betrayed, and violated. I was able to review my married life and how pornography had put a stranglehold on our marriage from early on. We had only been married a couple of months when he brought home a pornographic magazine. I locked him out of the car because I was so hurt and angry. For many years in our marriage, he was most cruel in many of his demands. I was never good enough for him. I felt incredibly beaten down at the time to a point of deep depression. I know now that I was being compared to the latest porn queen. We went to counseling one time, and my husband proceeded to rip me apart with his criticism and disdain for me. I could not even get into the car with him after that, but walked around the town for hours, contemplating suicide. I did go on, but zipped a protective shield around myself. I existed for other reasons than my husband and found joy in my children, in projects and accomplishments that I could do totally on my own. All I ever wanted was to feel cherished and treated with the smallest of pleasantries, instead of being treated like some kind of chattel. I am now left to grieve not only for his being gone, but also for a relationship that could have been beautiful but was not. Please warn everyone. Pornography is not some titillating feast for your eyes that gives a momentary rush of excitement. Rather, it has the effect of damaging hearts and souls to their very depths, strangling the life out of relationships, hurting to the very core those you should love the most. I don't think I have to add much more to this letter. It's obvious, and it's one of the many stories of women who went through significant trauma when their husbands didn't control their addictions. It's simple. Women want to feel like they are beautiful. I don't know any woman who doesn't. If you're looking at other women and not at them, they get the message that they're not good enough. This can have a major impact on their self-esteem and on your relationship with your wife. Daughters get confused about their identity. They think that guys see them as lust objects and start seeing it as their responsibility to fulfill their desires. Stephanie Cleveland described her experience. The first time I saw pornography, I was 10 years old. I found my father's Playboy magazines. I remembered I just looked at them for a long time. I had already seen my mother naked. In comparison with them, my mother just looked really flawed and kind of ordinary and ugly. I thought, that must be why my dad has these pictures, because my mother isn't good enough for him. Another young girl said the following about the culture in her teen years. Sex was prevalent in films, magazines, billboards. It was everywhere. It was just thrown at me from the time I was 12 or 13 that you were obligated to have sex. That's how you exist as a social being, as a woman. I think around 14 or 15, I had this strong sense that sex, or my sexuality, was really my only value. It often led me to feeling that my body was simply for the pleasure of others. I lost the feeling that I was intelligent, or could be an active participant in things that weren't sexual, or pleasing my peers. Sons can see their father's addiction and follow the same pattern. They could end up seeing women as inferior, or even they wouldn't act on their addiction or go to the extreme length of smooth-talking girls into sleeping with them, or even rape. It can definitely distort their image of decency and their respect towards the other gender. Some might even be respectful, but get completely caught up in their own world, neglecting the needed interaction with their loved ones. Not only do the people around an addict get damaged, but indirectly, there are other consequences of every person who fuels this massive industry. Secret 4. How pornography damages the victims in the industry. Wealthy capitalists in this world benefit financially from women being hung, gang raped, mutilated, vomited, or urinated on. I've even read about people being put in chains and forced to eat or drink like dogs. And I can't even imagine any of the other sickening things people come up with to humiliate the other gender. Perhaps this is not the hardcore stuff you or someone you know has been watching. It may be too extreme. But for some, one thing leads to another. And within a certain time period, they are looking for more extreme or more interesting things to watch. According to various studies, more than 68% of sex workers experienced PSTD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, which often arises because of the violence against them, the cuts, swellings, bleeding, mutilation, breaking, brain memory, the deformed imaginations, the psychological numbing, social distancing, nightmares, flashbacks, and anxious physiologic hyperarousal. Of course, there is a crossover between prostitution and pornography. If a pimp controls a woman, he can get money from someone who wants to rape her. But he knows he can get even more money if he records something like that, stages it, and sells millions of copies on the black market. Here are some things visitors of brothels have said, admitting that the women there have been completely abused. The pimp controls her and forces her to do things she is not ready or wanting to do. She is afraid of him. She will get slapped if she doesn't do as she is told. He hits her and plays mind games with her. The pimp is the owner and the prostitute is the slave. Death is the end result of her relationship with a pimp. Sometimes I feel it's wrong. You just have to block that out. It bothers me that they go through so much, but I still go to them. What's ironic, and said at the same time, is that these men know how much these women get abused, yet their desire to satisfy their urges block out their conscience. Pornographers use sex trafficking victims in their videos and photos a lot. How do you know the woman smiling or enjoying something in the picture or movie is not being forced, coerced, blackmailed, or threatened? You don't. They're really good at hiding it. You don't know what is happening behind the camera. Outspoken activists like Linda Borman said, "Every time someone watches porn, they are watching me being raped." A lot of these women consent because they see no other way out of it. They are distressed, a little off, homeless, or don't see any alternative. Others simply have a gun pointed to their heads, or the pimps abducted their children or threatened to kill their family members. Some do it for the money, and some porn stars claim they actually enjoy it. But as a consumer, you will seldom know which of them did and which ones didn't. Like I mentioned, stats show that not even 10% of the women involved enjoy their profession. And even if they are enjoying it, the negative effects from pornography I mentioned earlier on you and your family are still there. Chris Stark explained, "When someone walks into a room and rapes someone, that act has occurred between two people. When you are being used in pornography, you can't get away from how set up that violent act is. Because there are lights, and there is typically more than one person behind the camera. And what it does to your psyche, to your sense of self, to know that the violation that has occurred is going to be reproduced and sold for entertainment. That there are men you don't know who are looking at that, and they are obtaining more pleasure from your humiliation, your violation, your subjection." Sarah Catherine, someone who participated in the making of pornography for financial reasons, said the following, "I want you to know that there was not a single moment that I was not watching the clock and wishing for it to be over. I found the work disgusting, and if I had any alternative to make the same amount of money, to eat and pay the rent, I would have done it. I would ask you to think about what that means. If you can continue to eroticize, that knowing that I didn't want to be there." The world of pornography is a gruesome realm, with abuse and extortion and even murder being involved constantly. Torture, sadomasochism, rape, exploitation, and billions of dollars fueling all of that play a role in this culture. This multi-billion-dollar industry in renting organs and human flesh manipulates individuals, firms, and sometimes entire cities. It has been projected that around 8 million people, counting children, are trafficked across borders internationally to solicit sex, to survive financially, or adhere to the blackmailing demands of the pimp or abuser. Main organized crime networks occur in areas like North Africa, Northern India, Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, and Brazil. Almost 50% of hundreds of interviewed women reported, in a study of 1990, that their pimps made pornography from their sexual acts. These capitalist thinkers know how to leverage their assets, and they know exactly how to make it look fake, so that consumers will think those women and children are enjoying it. If you've seen the movie Taken, you probably understand what I am talking about. Racist and sexist themes are displayed in various pornographic materials, showing the demeaning or subduing of someone from a different race or the opposite sex. Additionally, while many people are against child pornography, a lot of pseudo-child pornography created by such business owners is specifically designed to make the transition run more smoothly, depicting women with toys, teddy bears, and in innocent or childlike poses to shift the viewer slowly into the younger-aged girls, into sexual poses, with clothes and makeup that suggest such maturity. Others are displayed as being tormented, being treated as dogs, chained, battered, or hanging on their feet upside down. There are organizations that sell sex trips or men's trips to countries like Thailand and Cambodia, so that girls as young as 8 years old can be molested. These tour operators actively promote how easy it is to do with them whatever you want, and that they are not ashamed to admit that their customers are often men who cannot find a partner at home. I've been to Thailand myself, and I don't condemn any male who finds a sweet female partner there and treats her with respect. In fact, some of my best friends have done so. It's not about the interracial relationship, and not even about the fact that some women are there just looking for financial stability, while the men from Western countries look for companionship. None of these things are wrong by itself. But when I see a 90-year-old Caucasian guy with his arms around two Thai women who look no older than 19, it makes me feel that there are a lot of things going wrong in that beautiful country. And the big drive is this: an exchange of sexual services and or companionship for money, with little or no connection or interest in the well-being of the significant other. Of the many deadly sins, it makes me wonder if greed and lust are perhaps the strongest. I know what you're thinking. Of course you aren't hurting the women in the videos and pictures anymore if you watch them. After all, they've already been made. It's over. The time that they were making the movie or photo shoot is over. So how does it hurt them if I watch it? It doesn't, right? Not directly. But here's the thing. Every time someone consumes that stuff, the whole porn industry, with all its evils, gets a little boost. Every time the sales go up, the views get recorded, and the advertisements get clicked, the capitalists who abuse this system and the women get the message that there is a demand. And to supply this demand, they will create more. And to create more, they go to lengths of kidnapping, killing, raping, abusing, and blackmailing children and women to fulfill the desires of those who buy that material. And the deceiving part of it is that you won't always be able to tell what happened behind the scenes, and how miserable the victims, prostitutes, or porn stars are. Secret 5. Every addict feels ashamed. Not too long ago, a Christian service released a website with a survey function that records anonymous reasons why guys watch pornography. You can check it out here at ilookatpornwin.com. The most mentioned reasons were: my wife hasn't shown much interest in me lately. I am stressed. I need to escape from reality. I believe I am not wanted or worthy. I am frustrated. I don't know what to do. I think about intimacy and then about sex. I'm disappointed in myself. I see an enticing ad or commercial. I feel unattractive. I feel rejected. I can't sleep. I feel lonely. I am tired. I am depressed. This is in order of what has happened the most. Ladies, can you see how you can help your man from escaping into pornography? If he gets enough sleep, keeps his stress levels low, gets enough fun things to do, gets enough attention and compliments, can you see how this decreases the temptation to view porn? Men, you have been victimized. It's your own responsibility to decide to give in to temptation. But it's not your fault that this stuff exists, and that it's so tempting. And even though you should not make any excuses, the other tactic the devil uses is to discourage you. It's not too late, and you can always go back. Shame tells us that other people will not respect us anymore if we expose the truth. And yes, we do not need to confess all of our weaknesses to Joe down the street or anyone who asks for it. But to the people it matters to, we need to confess and apologize. Here are 3 ways to fight shame. 1. Realize you are not alone. In fact, thousands or even millions of men are probably looking at porn right now. They have the same problem, and they might all feel that they are alone, even though they are not. And of course, this doesn't justify it. Just because everyone smokes doesn't make it a good choice for your health. Equally, with porn, just because everyone watches it, or at least the majority, doesn't make it right. But don't make the mistake of isolating yourself. Don't fall into the trap that nobody understands what you're going through. Many people do. 2. We are not supposed to live in shame. Guilt and shame are a natural reaction of our spirits to sin. Our conscience tells us it's wrong, even when we don't know what to do about it. But we cannot dwell on it. Even people without an addiction have weaknesses. They might be mean to others, have a bad temper, be a lazy provider, bad parent, or simply not care about other people's happiness. Women have their own weaknesses and struggles too. Nobody is perfect. And if a porn addiction makes you imperfect, let's just say that you're just human then. Find the balance. Do not use this as an excuse. It sickens me when people say, "I can't help myself. I am just a man." We need to know better. We can overcome weaknesses. Aren't we supposed to be the stronger sex? Well, let's show the world what we are capable of by disciplining ourselves. 3. Dwell on your worth. God loves you, and you are doing well in so many other areas. You cannot despise yourself for having imperfections. Do something about it, but don't beat yourself up every time you relapse. We'll talk more about this in the next chapters. In some communities or circles, sexuality is despised. It is regarded as dirty and wrong, and perhaps your parents aren't exactly educational about how beautiful and terrific intimacy is. On the other hand, it can be a nasty annoyance when your needs don't get fulfilled. Such is the controversy of life. I have found many times that instead of being ashamed of my sexuality, it helps to stay away from hitting the boundaries by being proud of my desires. The desires are naturally good. The only thing that sucks sometimes is if you can't do anything about it. What you need to do is have a point system in your head. Jesus said that we should seek after treasures in heaven, not the ones on earth. So don't you think that if you can control yourself in the difficult moments, the eternal justice of a righteous, loving Creator will somehow compensate for that at a later time? Each time you control yourself, you gain favor with the powers of heaven. And in one way or another, you'll be rewarded. Sexuality is a natural and normal thing, and it should never be suppressed or denied, just controlled. I've said this before, but it's so crucial, especially in a world full of dirty jokes, mockery, and dark, unbridled lusts. We need to rise above the lie that sex can be enjoyed at any time with anyone, but we also need to deny the other lie, namely, that sexuality is therefore wrong, dirty, or sinful in itself. The devil is smart. He wants you to believe one or the other. The one will leave you to feel without guilt, without conscience, and will all the serious consequences that follow. The other will leave you without self-esteem, constantly living in fear that you'll be sent to hell because you make some mistakes. Embrace the truth, control yourself, and listen to God's whisperings in moments of stillness. You will know, with a smile on your face, what the truth is regarding sexuality. You will understand what is right and what is wrong. Each time you control yourself, you gain favor with the powers of heaven, and in one way or another, you'll be rewarded. Sexuality is a natural and normal thing, and it should never be suppressed or denied, just controlled. I've said this before, but it's so crucial, especially in a world full of dirty jokes, mockery, and dark, unbridled lusts. We need to rise above the lie that sex can be enjoyed at any time with anyone, but we also need to deny the other lie, namely, that sexuality is therefore wrong, dirty, or sinful in itself. The devil is smart. He wants you to believe one or the other. The one will leave you to feel without guilt, without conscience, and will all the serious consequences that follow. The other will leave you without self-esteem, constantly living in fear that you'll be sent to hell because you make some mistakes. Embrace the truth, control yourself, and listen to God's whisperings in moments of stillness. You will know, with a smile on your face, what the truth is regarding sexuality. You will understand what is right and what is wrong. Secret 6. It's a cycle. Addictions are all related to what happens to our brains. Dopamine, depression, loneliness, and neurological processes all contribute to becoming addicted. Let's break down the process a little bit, so you can understand what is happening to addicts. And if that's you, you'll better understand yourself as well. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that rewards us in the brain. When we experience pleasure or fulfillment, dopamine is released. Typical things can be food, social services, accomplishments, relief, relationships, attention, and of course, sexual enjoyment. The value that is assigned to addictive stimuli relies on the amount of dopamine that gets released when it is encountered. And sexual encounters are some of the highest. Experience has shown, for example, that 1.5 times as much dopamine is released when we eat good food. When smokers light up a cigarette, twice the amount of dopamine gets released. With sexual intercourse, however, the amount is 2.5 times as much. When people watch pornography, it's even higher than that, and it's also higher than cocaine. Therefore, it's easy to get addicted to pornography, and many young teens have no clue in what dangerous activities they are engaging when this curiosity gets sparked. The serious consequences have often not been explained to them, so can you always blame them? Before they know it, they're addicted, without understanding what's happening to them. And a life of hardship, broken relationships, and frustration lies ahead of them. The devil laughs when this happens. He loves the ignorance in the world and uses it to trap innocent individuals and sprinkle misery on their entire existence. Back to brain science. When the initial high release of dopamine is experienced, the brain becomes hypersensitive towards it. The images are hard to remove from one's mind because the stimulus is so strong. I remember having accidentally seen a naked woman in my teens. I had learned to turn my eyes away from such things, but that one time, I stared a little too long, taking in the details of her body and storing them in the short-term memory part of my brain. Big mistake. The rest of the day, that image was vividly impressed on my mind. Wherever I went, it popped up in my imagination, and I remember being shocked and afraid because it was so hard to try to forget. After that, fortunately, I disciplined myself better whenever I encountered such images, being well aware of the snaring effects and the huge impression on someone's mind they can have. When this happens, and a person allows himself to look at it, all kinds of situations, like being alone, having relationship problems, being on the internet, or certain locations, smells, sounds, or shapes in the world around them become associated with those images and feelings. The dopamine effect becomes real, and the thirst for more becomes intense. Typically, however, desensitization happens afterwards, which means the dopamine released is lowered, and this makes us uncaring again. Actually, this is a survival mechanism in the brain. The brain has received an overly stimulated dopamine rise and is trying to normalize levels again. The hyperstimulation is like an overdose of drugs. It is never good for the body. So in order to balance body functions, the brain creates receptors that promote desensitization and make the body numb to such high dopamine levels. Do you understand how awful this can be? It means that the brain becomes desensitized to normal dopamine releases. Spending time with friends and family, food, success, and passionate hobbies, interests, or other rewarding things in life suddenly or gradually become less interesting. Addicts have reported to spend less time with loved ones, pull back into their own world, and neglect important responsibilities. They generally enjoy life less because no regular rewards stimulate their brain enough anymore. On the contrary, more pornographic material, or more extreme in many cases, does give them that dopamine rush again, so they seek it out again. The problem is that the same stimulus isn't created with the same material. This is why there are so many addicts who are turned off when they see hardcore porn, which is often abusive, degrading, and to most regular people, perhaps very disgusting. Addicts normally start with soft porn, but when this doesn't give them the same rush anymore, they seek out more extreme things because their brains are numbed to the soft stuff. Hypofrontality. There are two areas in the brain that override the reward system's desire to increase dopamine: the anterior cingulate and the orbital frontal cortex. These areas in the brain helps us to make rational decisions, avoid risks and dangers, and analyze things to think straight. Basically, they help us have common sense. Even when something is rewarding and increases dopamine, like staying home from work and going to a theme park instead, these two great areas help us weigh the end results and the consequences and counter that decision so that we go to work, do our job, and make money instead of waste money. In the first stages of an addiction, we still may have the ability to resist temptation, but after repeated intake, the brain determines that the dopamine released from pornography is more important than the serious consequences that may come from it. This is when hypofrontality occurs. Hypofrontality simply means that the brain has been rewired so that each time this high dopamine rush happens because of pornography, the system to override and counter the reward system is shut down. This is why so many addicts have reported that even when they don't want to view it, they still do, as if their brain runs on autopilot. They lose control, and they typically become engaged in riskier behavior. Some may even go as far as looking up sexually deviant material, voyeurism, forced sexual manipulation, rape, or other illegal behavior. Psychopathic serial killers like Ted Bundy, someone who raped victims, murdered them, and then sometimes went as far as mutilating or raping the corpses, have mentioned pornography as one of their starting points to further deviant, immoral, violent behavior. Of course, many of these people were also traumatized by a disturbing childhood, but the use of pornography was often specifically mentioned. For some, pornography becomes so important, the dopamine release so desired, that they are unwilling to give it up and even file for divorce because their wives can no longer compete with the exaggerated, seductive images. Needless to say, that porn can have a devastating effect on one's sex life. An intimate partner may not release enough dopamine in the addict's brain, so erectile dysfunction and a lower libido have frequently been reported by victims of this addiction. In a way, you could say that the frontal lobe is literally damaged and that many addicts slowly start losing the ability to think straight. They become less reliable and make less sense. But this doesn't have to last. There is a way to do something about it. In a scientific way, it would be twofold. First, the old neural pathways need to be starved. And second, new neural pathways must be built and fueled, increasing dopamine levels in a manner that builds up the prefrontal cortex again. 1. Starving the neural pathways. Quit viewing pornography and fantasizing about it. Don't give in. This seems too simple for many people, just to tell them to stop it. But when you know all these things about the brain, telling you to stop it is not the same as telling you to live with these unfulfilled, intense cravings. No, it's telling you that those cravings will disappear if you starve them. When someone thinks, I feel terrible, my brain needs porn, he can at the same time think, but eventually my brain will literally heal. My frontal cortex will grow back to its original shape. And if I resist the urge now, I won't have that urge in the future. Some tips are, of course, to distract yourself with something else. Avoid external triggers, like TV, internet, looking away, etc. Or avoid internal triggers, like emotions, boredom, loneliness, exhaustion, anger, stress, etc. 2. Build up your brain. Like working out at the gym, you need to exercise. The goal is to get new habits that release dopamine but aren't related to anything sexual. Examples of doing this are hobbies, passions, career plans, sports, socializing, meditating, etc. If you don't do this, you may break away from a porn addiction, only to find yourself becoming addicted to video games, sugar, caffeine, alcohol, winning, attention, binge eating, gambling, TV watching, work, or any other addictive behavior, just to fall into the same pattern of getting dopamine rushes instead of healthy rewards without risks or harmful consequences. I've seen this many times. People who fall from one addiction into another, or worse, people who have multiple addictions at the same time. How many times have you seen that people like to smoke a cigarette while they're playing coffee? Rewiring your brain means that you take care of the entire problem, the root of it, not just the symptoms. Something you must focus on, and this will take time, and it's a gradual process, is to avoid anything that may be addicting, including notifications and messages from your phone, something a lot of social media addicts overlook. The goal is to become free so you can make choices for yourself. I talked to someone who had left his addiction in the past, and he mentioned how vulnerable we are as human beings. How almost anything, even good things, in this world can be addicting, and that you really need to watch yourself all the time. Work on your freedom. This will be the biggest motivator to stay away from addictions. Secret 8. There is a 12-step program. There are 12-step programs, just like the Alcohol Anonymous, for porn addicts. They share their experience, their struggles, and they support each other. Everyone I know who has broken away from their addiction attributes a big part of their success to these meetings. When they have been clean for a long time, they often go to encourage others and show that it's possible. I highly recommend searching for these meetings. One of the best ways to deal with the struggles of an addiction is to feel that others are supporting you, that you're not alone in this. In a nutshell, here are the 12 steps. Step 1. Honesty. Admit that you're unable to overcome your addictions without help, and that life has become unmanageable. Admitting to being addicted is one of the hardest steps, and it's the first. No more lies, no more secrecy. You have to become willing to abstain, and you have to be willing to break away from the addiction. Start coming to meetings, be humble, and let go of pride. See temptations for what they are. This is the first step. Step 2. Hope. Believe that God's power can restore you to spiritual health. Sometimes we realize how powerless we are, and we give up. But instead, we should rely on God and believe that, because we reached out for help, He is willing to give us that help. Believe that His grace, His mercy, will be there for you if you study His Word and put your faith in His power. Step 3. Trust in God. Turn your will and your life over to God. Decide to trust Him. Accept that you can change some things, but not others. Submitting to the will of God means being in harmony with Him. It means that you try to seek out what He thinks is best for you, not necessarily what you want, and that you accept His timetable with patience. Communication with Him and prayer are major parts of this step. Step 4. Truth. Make a moral inventory of yourself. You look into the past, your intentions, your actions, thoughts, words, mistakes, successes. Analyze your life and be honest about it. See what you did right and what you did wrong, and how you can change for the better. Each time when something occurred, you need to go over these 4 things. 1. What happened exactly? 2. What was the effect on you and others when it did? 3. How did you feel back then and now about what happened? 4. Examine yourself. How did your strengths or weaknesses affect the situation? 5. What advice does God give to do in this situation? Write down these things in a journal. Acknowledge the past and have hope to recover. The truth shall make you free and help you see what needs to get done in the future. Step 5. Confession. Admit again, to yourself and God, the exact nature of your wrongdoings, but also admit it to those involved, which could be your spouse or other loved ones affected by it. This will free you from your isolation, and even though the truth may shock some of those around you, it will, in the end, be better than keeping it hid. Looking for forgiveness and let peace come into your life, that these things can be in the past and stay there. Stop trying to look good to others. This is not about your image or reputation, but about the real you. Step 6. Change of heart. Become ready to allow God to remove your weakness. When we have a weakness, overcoming us helps us become stronger. Therefore, no matter how ironic this may sound, our weakness makes us strong. God knows this, and it's one of the reasons why He lets us struggle until we break free. But at a certain point, He can help us out, and if we go to the 90% we need to go, He can hand us the other 10% on a silver platter to make our repentance complete. When you reach this step, hopefully you'll see that you've made significant progress, and you're getting ready to full recovery. Even though there are still some steps to be made, the basics in these steps include involving Jesus Christ in the process and accepting help from God. Step 7. Humility. Ask your Heavenly Father to get rid of your shortcomings. You've done your part. Now you ask for help. Look for power to resist temptation, and ask God to do for you what you cannot do yourself. At this point, you should be able to feel His love for you, which is one of the most important roles of forgiving yourself as well. Step 8. Seek forgiveness. Make a list of everyone who may be negatively affected by your behavior and think of ways to make restitution to them. Your addiction may have had destroying effects on others. You may have hurt their feelings. You may have broken their trust or have been a bad example. Now it's time to do the opposite. Repentance means making it right. Making it right can help you become forgiven. In addition, ask others for forgiveness and sincerely apologize. Do not become offended and do not look for excuses. Pray for them and encourage them, if needed, to attend meetings as well. I know for a fact, for example, that in the city where I live, there are women's meetings who express their worries and concerns. Most of them have a son, husband, or someone else who has a porn or alcohol addiction, or serious anger or abuse issues. They come together and support each other as victims. Step 9. Restitution and reconciliation. Make amends. Basically, what you wrote down and analyzed in the previous step is what you're going to take action on. This may take time and patience. Step 10. Accountability. Promptly admit when you make mistakes. Many people experience relapses, but the best way to handle them is to immediately hold yourself accountable for your actions. Sharing relapses in a group can be a great way to feel more accountable, as well as sharing success stories. Watch your thoughts, words, and deeds. Live in the present and control yourself. Keep growing spiritually and improve your life from now on. Step 11. Personal revelation. Try to figure out what God wants from you. He will inspire you if you listen carefully, especially now that you're not as much a prisoner of your physical desires. You are more in tune with His voice and His communication to you. Study His Word and apply it to your life. Try to list the things you are grateful for and see His hand in your destiny. Step 12. Service. Share the message with others, attend meetings, strengthen others, and engage in selfless activities. This will give you more joy and satisfaction in life, and actually give you a stronger feeling of self-esteem, accomplishment. Accountability. Promptly admit when you make mistakes. Many people experience relapses, but the best way to handle them is to immediately hold yourself accountable for your actions. Sharing relapses in a group can be a great way to feel more accountable, as well as sharing success stories. Watch your thoughts, words, and deeds. Live in the present and control yourself. Keep growing spiritually and improve your life from now on. Step 11. Personal revelation. Try to figure out what God wants from you. He will inspire you if you listen carefully, especially now that you're not as much a prisoner of your physical desires. You are more in tune with His voice and His communication to you. Study His Word and apply it to your life. Try to list the things you are grateful for and see His hand in your destiny. Step 12. Service. Share the message with others, attend meetings, strengthen others, and engage in selfless activities. This will give you more joy and satisfaction in life, and actually give you a stronger feeling of self-esteem, accomplishment, and restitution. Secret 9. There is hope. I don't want to get too much into a pep talk, but I just want to impress upon you that there is hope. There have been many people in my life who told me of their experiences, and that they broke away from their addictions. Some reported to having been clean for years, and even though they sometimes struggle with other addictions, like phone notifications, video games, or sugar, they know how to stay away from porn, and they have been succeeding. So here is the simple message. If they can do it, you can too. Before I close, I want to give you a few more tips I found, since so much of the porn nowadays is on the internet. Here are 5 ways to motivate you to not click on an image you know will lead you to something unacceptable in God's eyes. I am trying to avoid the word dirty because the human body is not dirty, but when you look at women other than your wife, it's simply wrong. 1. Think of the legacy you leave behind. What we reap is what we sow. Be that person with integrity. 2. Think of your example. Think of how your sons and daughters love you. Your wife is proud of you. Or people in your group are happy when you report resisting temptation. 3. Think of your time. Time is money, or entertainment, or so many other things. You do not have time for this stuff. Do you really think that those with a happy family life and a successful career had much time to spend on watching pictures of random women? I hope they didn't. But no matter how it is with them, you have better things to do. We only have so much time on this earth. What will you do with yours? 4. Think of your commitments. Don't get distracted. Focus is the new sexy. I mean it. So many people get caught up in their own worlds, with the internet, commercials, and social media all pulling at them and demanding their attention. Be a social person, a fun dad, a listening husband. They need you. 5. Think of your soul. Your honor, your nobility, your satisfaction of your accomplishments. These are all at stake when you waste the hours of your life with things that are neither uplifting nor productive. You have to see yourself as a hero who fights evil, slays the dragon, and doesn't let temptations affect him. Your self-image determines a lot. Thanks again for buying my book. If you have a minute, please leave a positive review. I take reviews seriously and always look at them. This way, you are helping me provide you better content that you will love in the future. A review doesn't have to be long, just 1 or 2 sentences and a number of stars you feel appropriate. Hopefully 5, of course. Also, if I think your review is useful, I will mark it as helpful. This will help you become more known on Amazon as a decent reviewer and will ensure that more authors will contact you with free ebooks in the future. This is how we can help each other. This has been Pornography Addiction. Dirty secrets the porn industry and the devil are keeping from you. Written by Vance Munson. Narrated by Weston Grit. Copyright 2017 by Vance Munson. Production copyright 2018 by Vance Munson.